Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Our View. This is a program put together by members of the Women's Co-op about our view of poverty in our community. Tonight, our topic is about our own home, Women's Co-op. So I have with me tonight Mia Henry. Mia is our recruiter in our employment and training programs. And our newest employee, Dylan Rank. Dylan is our male case manager here at the co-op. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. So let's just have a little conversation. Oops. Dylan, about 2 months ago, we added male case management into our repertoire. Tell me why we did that.
I think, so Women's Co-op has mostly been women helping women, and I think diving deeper into that, we found that men also need assistance as well, and that, you know, the single dads and just the struggling guys that are out there by themselves don't necessarily have the resources or the help that they need, or just the communication to talk to some of these agencies or to advocate for themselves. So like bridging that communication with a lot of the agencies in town has been really helpful for them. And then I just think adding the support, because everybody needs support. It's not just the women in the community that need it. And I think that's what we're seeing, is that the dads and the men can benefit from it as well.
Okay. Yeah. So you've touched on a few things that we do similar. So we obviously, when a woman comes in, she fills out an application, she has a triage, and is that the same thing that we're doing for the men now?
So with the men, it is almost the same, except for they're not joining membership. So they're still getting all the benefits and all the resources, and as long as they're willing to, you know, volunteer their time as well and help with the organization where we need it. You know, sometimes we got to move some things, or getting community service hours, or whether they're going through one of our training programs or working with us, we do offer or bridge the gap to take advantage of some of the benefits from the agencies in town, and then help with supportive services, whether it's just somebody to talk to, or just spitball ideas off of, or, you know, what agency will benefit them the most, like going forward with their situation. Like maybe it's a good thing to go apply for food stamps right now, but maybe it won't benefit you in the long run, or it takes you away from something. So looking at those things as well, because it's not just common knowledge. You're not taught that in school. You're not taught like how to take care of yourself necessarily in those ways when you are stuck or struggling, or didn't just go to school and do it the right way and get a job. Like there are those people that still need help too. Mm-hmm. And so helping the men do that, and then just putting them to work mostly is the biggest barrier, and then like working on transportation and housing, which the women needed that help as well, but it's just different. It looks different from the men. Men aren't going to come to you and say, you know, I need help with this, or I didn't do this right. Whereas in most cases, the women are more humble or willing to do that, or ask for the help. So I think that's like the biggest difference, is like breaking down that barrier for them.
They feel like their pride is being, if they come, they have to come to you and ask you for something. I think it's a stab to their pride sometimes, maybe.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
Right. So, Mia, we started noticing the numbers when we were doing employment and training. We noticed that, what would you say, what percentage of our men were?
So when I first started, most of the people I employed were men,
right,
to begin with. So that was probably our first, I guess, interaction. And as they started working, they would ask me for things, or for help with things, and I'm, you know, okay, I was just supposed to help you get a job. Let me ask somebody. So then that's when I started to see that there must be a need for it. And like Dylan said, I don't think guys are always so receptive to going to someone for help, especially unless they have a relationship with you. And I think the longer they worked for us and the more they got to know us, the more comfortable they got with asking for help. So that's when I first noticed that maybe women's co-op, could be a benefit to men too.
Right. And I think we figured it out while we were placing in the employers, with conversations that we had with you. But then I think the real thing was when we went down and triaged at the Battle Creek shelter,
Yeah.
and we found that there were folks down there that with just a little support within their own lives, or any shelter at that matter, just a little support with their own lives, they could, make leaps and bounds into what they do. So approximately we serve right now on the women's co-op, the women's side, we have about 180, 190 women that we see on an ongoing basis. And then we've added your cases into that number, so you have, 108, I think?
Yeah.
So altogether, we see about 280, almost 290 people on a monthly basis. So what does that case management look like to you? Like, is it something that you can relate to? Is it easier for men than you've seen for the women? Or what are you thinking?
So depending on the person is what really makes the difference. If I got somebody that is used to trying to spin the narrative or the story that they want whatever agency to believe or the person they're talking to believe so they can get whatever it is that they're looking for, I think that is always hard to kind of take it away. Like, you have to make them feel comfortable and willing to accept whatever help they're asking for, and to just be honest, because a lot of times you'll start working with somebody and they say that maybe they only have this one problem because, again, the pride thing is an issue. But I think doing the case management for them, I think it comes to me fairly easy because it's just easy to relate with people. I think that's the biggest thing with a lot of social work agencies, is that there's not a lot of connecting to the person or understanding what it's like being in their shoes. You're like, come on, dude, why haven't you got a job? Why are you just sitting at home? Why do you drink every day? Why do you have DUIs piling up? They don't understand what it's like to not have anything, or be living paycheck to paycheck, or to lose a bill and not have anybody else. Men are supposed to be the backbone of a foundation for a family or for a household, and so when you're the backbone and your backbone isn't strong enough to keep yourself up, let alone a family or a house, how are you supposed to go to somebody, or who are you supposed to go to ask for that help? I think that's the biggest barrier as well, in doing the case management. But as far as day to day, it's a lot of connecting them to the different resources in town to get gas cards to get to work, or agencies that might help, once you've worked for so long, get a car, or a lot of the next step things to just kind of get their life on track, really. But for me, I enjoy case management. I enjoy working with the guys. It is a little hard, though, sometimes to point them in the right direction, and then even if I get them in the right direction, keeping them on that path or to do whatever it is that's going to benefit them is not always easy as well.
So that aspect of case management goes for men and women.
Yeah.
The adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Do you see, or do you hear, that a lot of these folks who are having the most issue and the most devastation in their lives are folks who didn't have a good role model growing up? There was no role model for them to model themselves after?
I think so, and I think that a lot, obviously racism plays a role, your culture, your ethnicity, all that as well, and then your upbringing, and if you lived in poverty or you grew up in a middle class, we all still see the traumas. Mom and dad could make six figures and go to work every day, but dad might have a drinking problem and is, ruining every family dinner you guys have. It's not poverty or race or any of those things that take away those family issues or traumas that we experience. But I'm sorry, what was your question again?
So you pretty much answered it. It's not just the role model that they're missing. They may have a role model, but it's a support network that they don't have because, you're a man, figure it out.
Right, and I think that's just the stereotype that comes with for a lot of men, and the precedent that's been set by society is that you're a man, so you'll figure it out. But I think it goes a little deeper than that. I think we're all people and we all have emotions and we all need to be cared for, and sometimes you don't have a big family. Or I think that's what I meant by like, it's not a class issue, it's not a race issue, it's more of like it's a human issue. Like
Right.
we're not human enough to care for the other person. We don't have the time for it, we don't have the energy, we're not taking care of ourselves because we're not taking care of each other, if that makes sense.
It does. And it's because 9 times out of 10, we're stuck in survival mode.
Right.
So
And-
we're just worried about getting from 1 to 2 to 3. And now you want to throw 1.5 and 2.5 in there. And I really don't
And you
have
have to
time.
plan
for
for
that.
7, 8, and 9 throughout
Right.
the process.
And you're not ready to
You've
do
never
that.
been shown how to plan for 7, 8, or 9. You've only
Right.
been taught like this is 1, 2, 3. You do 1, 2, 3 each day, and you'll be okay. You'll
Right.
survive.
Right.
But really, life there's a lot more to it. You have to get to 10 every day.
Right.
There's just more to it.
So what are some of the things that you see most commonly in your new case management role? Other than the fact every girl in the office shoots everybody your way on a daily basis.
Yes. That and the biggest barrier is just work, transportation, housing. It's the same 3 things I'm sure that are there for women, but for men it's a little harder because they've either, in my situations and the population I've dealt with so far, they've either lost their license and they've got to do A, B, and C to get it back, or there's a bunch of fines and fees that come with it, and it's not an easy road to just jump into it and take care of it. You know, it's not as simple as, oh, I need apples tonight, so I go to the grocery store and I get apples. It's more like I have to do A and B before I can even think about C, D, and E, you know?
Right.
There's just a lot of busy work and a lot of like self-work you have to do in the process, where you have to like keep your mind busy and stay away from like those bad influences that put you in those spots that set you back. You have to change the way you live your life and your mind frame of what you appreciate and who's looking out for you, and you have to open up your mind to the idea that like this place that's the women's co-op might actually benefit me as well and might be looking out for me, and like maybe this could be a family as well. Yeah.
Do you think a lot of men steer clear of seeking services because of the name of the organization?
I think there's just a little bit of confusion there. Like they don't know what exactly we offer or how they would play into that. I think, I don't know.
When I first started and I was recruiting, I didn't say women's co-op all the time.
Yeah.
When I was talking, of course we're women's co-op and I get that out the gate. But as I'm texting and talking to them, I'm co-op
Yeah,
to you now,
co-op.
because I don't want you to feel funny. You know what I mean? That you're getting help
Right.
from a women's organization.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, okay, so I had this misconception that you only got help for things like the Women Co-op helps with if you have kids. Are you finding yourself like working with a lot of older men who don't have families, men who it's just themselves? Because I think there is a misconception that I can only get help if I have dependents.
Yes, that was one of the issues, or that if they weren't tied to a woman in some standpoint, like whether or not they were helping their mom with like taking care of her, or a wife or a mom or something, like, or they didn't have the dependents, like you said. But no, I've dealt with a few different cases where the guys that came in and they're just being reset in life. Like they did factory for 12 years and that's all they know. They've managed people, they've managed a factory floor, but they've never done sit at a keyboard kind of work. They've never, taken care of a baby or held a baby. They don't know what they're doing, and now their daughter, they're a grandfather for the first time, and they're out of factory work, and their shoulder's injured, and they've got to learn a whole different ball game. Like they have to go back to school. They have to learn how to work on a computer and answer phones, and like they're great at it, but there's a learning curve to it, and there's an understanding that like you can come to the. I think most of the people that actually come through the door, they understand that it's not just like a women's co-op. Like it's pretty much like a family place. So you come here, you get help, no matter who you are in the family, your kids, everything. We offer all kinds of different supportive services and things. So I think moving forward, it would just be beneficial to like add something in there, women's co-op and the men, but I think it's okay for now. I think it works.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of the folks that we've seen come through our doors in the last few months are under the conception that will help the entire family. And
Yeah.
it makes me feel good when we see a mom come with her significant other and their kids. And we know that we can help the whole family, you know. I mean, before we would, but now it's an intentional help. Hey, you know, because before when we would do an intake, a woman would come in and she would say, you know, da 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 da, and then we'd say, well, where's the kids' dad? Well, he's at home, you know, and we just check the box and move on. Well, now we're taking that broader picture and we're saying, does he need a job?
Right. It's like taking that extra step of like, I mean, we can help mom all day long or get her back on her feet, but if she goes back home to dad, then what are you really benefiting? Like, dad's got to get up too. Dad's got to do something too.
Right.
And before it was like, oh, well, I'm going to this place where they help women. Okay, well, what do? And then it creates a stereotype too of like almost like the Little Rascals, like the she-woman man-hating club, and it's not. That's not women's co-op at all. Like, we help the entire family. I think before we just didn't have the conversation first off, and then you know the resources or the availability to help everybody.
Right.
And growing co-op, I think we've seen that like we can help them, and I think we've even had cases. I've got one gentleman that he was involved in co-op before and working with DHS and another agency in town. Like, he had just heard word of mouth that hey, maybe you can go to co-op and get some help as well. And he comes in and he's like, you know, me and my girl, she got help here years back, but like I'm not too sure. Like, they sent me here, but I don't know what I'm doing. Like, well, there are things that we can do to help you, you know. And then obviously diving into a situation, it gets a lot deeper, but you know, the conversation's at least started, and it at least gives them a place that they can come to start doing something different.
Right. And so a lot of our recruits that we have now are kind of balanced out now, wouldn't you say? And so when Dylan responds to a gentleman who comes in the door, and we can get them in one of our training programs, I think that's a phenomenal win for us as case managers and also for us as an organization. You know, we've been doing this for 20 years now, and it's time that we rattle and shake a little bit, I think, so that we can meet the needs of the whole community, not just one section of the community.
Yeah.
And I think adding this new case management and adding this new arm to co-op will certainly be beneficial. Tell me one of the lessons that you learned by just starting this. What's one of the biggest things that you found out that you had maybe an idea or had formed a stereotype or whatever you want to call it about it, but now that you're actually doing the work, what are you looking back and saying, well, that was totally a wrong idea?
I don't think I have anything that like an idea or a stereotype or anything that like was like wow, but I think I found like I kind of had the idea that like the race card would come into play a little bit, where I didn't realize that I would be this way, and I feel guilty even saying it, but like I did stereotype a little bit myself subconsciously, I think. I just noticed that like a lot of the African American and, you know, lesser minority type people that came in that weren't the typical white man, like they didn't know exactly like, is it okay to ask for the help? Is it okay to do these things? And like, can I trust you, I guess is a better way to say it. And then there was also the added layer, like they didn't want to ask for as much.
Right.
And whereas like a couple of the white gentlemen that I did serve, they came in, hand out, ready to go, like give me everything you got. And
right. And I think racism plays a lot in that.
Yes, and it was just mind-blowing to me to like see that, and then I don't know, I didn't do it intentionally, but it just made me drive that force of like, okay, I want to advocate so much harder and so much stronger for this group of people that I have. And not to not be fair, like it's not that I didn't advocate for them, it just makes me want to be that voice and give them my voice. Like I want to give my voice to them in that regard so that they can feel that empowerment too and lift themselves up and realize like it's okay to trust other people. Right. You don't always have to be looking over your shoulder.
And statistically, we know that a lot of the BIPOC population doesn't have the role models or the other, I don't know how to say it other than to say the other things that we got growing up. So, because we have privileged, and they may not have had that in their lives. And so for them to take that journey to be able to say, I feel like I'm as empowered as the next person and I can do just as much as the next person, that's where I think your case management and where the Women's Co-op will come in lifting folks up. We've always lifted up folks. It's been one of our mantras for years. And so that we get to lift up these folks is just as, these gentlemen is just as happy. I'm just as happy about that. So anything that you can think of that you would like people to know about the case management that you do or the things that you're working towards in case management?
I mean, honestly, I like what I'm doing. I hope more men feel comfortable to come in and like set down those barriers. And I mean, we could do what we do at Co-op anywhere. It's just about being a community and having each other's back and looking out for your neighbor. I think it's the biggest thing. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter what neighborhood you're from or who you're around. Like, you can just look out for people. And I don't know, more resources are always appreciated, obviously. More that I could get for the guys. Like, we get a lot of donations and it's the Women's Co-op, so it's a lot of women's clothes and children toys and kids clothes and stuff, and there's not a lot for the guys. So when they come and look through, maybe there's a winter coat or something, but like dress attire and stuff would be nice for them. And some of my guys, they're heavier set guys and they don't always have stuff that will fit them at most stores they go to, and then if they do, it's way overpriced and they can't afford it. So being able to just give them more of a lift up rather than just like, here's your bill paid for this month. Like, I would like to actually help them see a different lifestyle too, if they're open to it.
And you're doing a little education, you're doing some training with the folks, you're teaching some parenting classes. So Women's Co-op typically has always taught parenting classes to men and women, and sometimes it's just nicer if you can have a class where it's all gentlemen.
Yeah.
They're more open to share, they're more open to be those, responsible for their actions within those classes. And so some of the other things that you're doing is, like you mentioned, you'll meet them wherever.
Yeah.
Co-op has always been the organization that will meet you where you're at. And so I think that's important for them too. Like when we heard that there was some things going on at the Battle Creek shelter, we decided that's where we were going to go, and we packed up our little notebooks and pens and down we went. And so I think it's important that everyone knows that the Co-op is striving to be that place in the community where you can get resources. We may not be able to always pay for whatever you need to have paid for. We may not have the monies to do that, but we can help you find the resources to be able to do that. And we're open to do community service if that's what you need, whatever you may need, we're there to help you. And so...
one thing I would like to add, it would be nice to so like Women's Co-op has been around for coming up on 20 years. Like, there are those Jamie Baines and like those OG Co-op members that, you can really, does this idea even seem logical? Like, does this work? Can we rely on you? Like they're the ones that come in and will, like, when somebody needs a ride and to the grocery store, they're the ones that come in clutch in those moments. I would like to grow the men's side of it too, their network, like have a Faces of Male membership, guys that can be reliable and that have got their their life back on track and can be a guy that comes and picks up furniture for us and be reliable, or can help a couple guys get to work or something, like things like that. I just want to build a network with them too, where it can mimic what the women have, but be their own thing.
I agree. I think that's an excellent idea. And I also, think it's a good idea, too, that we try to keep case management separate.
Yeah.
We don't like fraternization. I mean, we have it, but we don't condone fraternization.
Right. And you don't want two people that are both in struggling places, used to being codependent, to be codependent with each other, to
Correct.
spiral further down.
Correct.
Want them to go up.
Right. So is there anything you guys would like to add about the new case managers and how things are working? Or I just think it's important that they know that there is another place in the community, as you can go to get your parenting classes, you can go to get some resources and to learn about some different things within your community. And we're taking everybody, we're all inclusive now. And also that, there's no judgment in our organization, absolutely none. We know everyone has a past, and we roll with that past with you to try to help make a better future for you. So we just work really hard to make sure that everybody is working successfully. And so let's kind of talk a little bit about that, like some of the positions that we have within Women's Co-op. How do we work that into being able to help those folks that we are serving right now? Like, how do we recruit, I guess is what I'm saying, for the male perspective? How would we recruit?
So basically the same way with the women. To be honest, when people come in and see you guys, if you find they're a good candidate or they're looking for work, you let me know and they can work. I offer every position to everybody. Early childhood can go to a man.
Yeah.
Bronson can go to a man. It just depends on the person. So
Right.
It's pretty much the same process. And to be honest, I, up until just recently, employed more men than I did women, to be honest.
Right. Until the early education.
Until the early childhood education
Right.
came. But yeah.
And I think that's another thing too, that it's really important that these young kids that are in early education, they may not have that role model either, so they need to know that we're there as well.
Yeah. Centers would love to have men as providers.
Right. All right, so we welcome you to stop by, visit our website, see what you can figure out about us, see how we could help you, or maybe you have a family member in your own life that needs some support and you can refer them to us, certainly. We thank you for joining us again tonight and look forward to the next episode of Our View. Thank you and have a good night.